The origins of France's colonial tradition can be traced back to the 16th century. France persists in its colonial endeavors, which were initiated in North America, the Caribbean, and India, and then extended to Africa, Indochina, and the South Pacific as part of its Second French colonial empire. The superior races have a right vis-a-vis the inferior races. The superior races have a right because they have a duty. They have the duty to civilize the inferior races. The civilizing missions delineated by these words involve the exploitation of the countries inhabited by millions of people, as well as their human and natural resources by the great colonial powers. During the initial stages of the French colony, the term Kanak was employed by the French to denote concepts such as inferior and enslaved. New Caledonia, situated almost 20,000 kilometers from mainland France, has been used as a penal colony for exile defenders by the French since 1853. Between the 1860s and 1897, some 22,000 individuals who had committed crimes or were involved in political activities were exiled to the island. Following the discovery of nickel resources on the island, a significant number of laborers, including individuals from other French colonies, were recruited to work there. Meanwhile, the indigenous population, known as the Kanaks, was marginalized and not included in the island's economic activities. In 1878, a significant revolt occurred, resulting in the deaths of around 1,000 Kanaks, as reported by various sources. In addition, diseases such as smallpox and measles were introduced to the island during the period of French colonization, originating from Europe. Meanwhile, France engaged in a ruthless policy of violence against the indigenous population. On the one hand, they reduced the number of indigenous people on the island by killing them, while also dramatically reducing the proportion of indigenous people by relocating the population to the island. The population of the indigenous Kanak people, estimated at over 60,000 in 1878, declined to 27,000 by 1921. Currently, the number of Kanaks residing on the island, which has an approximate population of 270,000, stands at less than 40% of the overall population. In 1946, New Caledonia became a part of the overseas territories of France. Conflicts between individuals supporting independence and the French government have persisted on multiple occasions up to the present day. The Kanaks, in their struggle for independence, which intensified during the 1970s, declared, "If you refuse to acknowledge our existence, we will resort to retaliatory measures. We will remain here forever. We will reclaim our nation unless each and every one of us is executed. This is our home. Allow us to be. Either you will annihilate us, or we will annihilate you." The indigenous people were granted many rights by the Matignon Agreement of 1936 and the Noumea Accord of 1998. Jean-Marie Tjibaou, the leader of the Kanak independence movement, who was also a signatory of the Matignon Agreement, was assassinated on the island in 1989 while he was attending a commemoration of a massacre that had occurred a year before. The 1998 Noumea Accord awarded New Caledonia special status and the right to organize 3 referendums on independence. In 2003, the status of overseas territory was abolished. Although the French state does not legally recognize New Caledonia as a colonial territory, the shadow of this great colonial power has never left the territory of New Caledonia. Today, 13 countries in the world fly the French flag and speak French, but have yet to attain full independence. In accordance with the Accord schedule, the first referendum was held in 2018 and the second in 2020, with 56.7% and 53.4% of voters choosing to remain under the rule of France, respectively. The fact that the indigenous Kanak population has declined to less than 40% of the overall population as a result of demographic change throughout the colonial period, while Europeans make up the island's second biggest population, calls into doubt the legitimacy of these referendums. The attendance for the third referendum in 2021 remained at 44% due to a boycott by pro-independence activists who wanted a postponement due to COVID-19, and 96% of participants decided to remain under the rule of France. Although the colonial French state granted the people of New Caledonia the right to a referendum following many years of bloody struggle, the indigenous Kanak people now account for only 40% of the island's population. Europeans, after Kanaks, are the island's most populous community, accounting for around 27%. France's brutal colonial past in New Caledonia has brought irreversible changes and damage to the island and its population. In the current situation, the indigenous Kanak people, who constitute a minority on the island, are unable to express their wishes by referendum. France continues exploiting the island's natural resources through its companies Société Le Nickel and Aramet, which account for the great majority of the country's nickel production. New Caledonia is a non-self-governing country, defined by the United Nations as territories whose people have not yet attained a full measure of self-government. Although the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, or the principle of self-determination, is listed at the beginning of the United Nations Charter, the people of Caledonia have been unable to escape colonization since the 19th century. Although there are serious doubts about whether France would allow a referendum reflecting the will of the local population in a highly strategically located Asia-Pacific country with 25% of the world's nickel reserves and consent to independence, New Caledonia's struggle for independence continues today under the authority of the Socialist National Liberation Front.